We've been doing a lot of talking at you over the last couple weeks, and we won't stop doing that, but we'll be doing less of that as the weeks go on, where you'll have more opportunity to take what you've learned and really apply it to your communities. But we've jammed an incredible amount of information at you, and we're going to continue to do that. You're going to feel that throughout the process, a little bit of a fire hose approach. And somebody says, well, can't you go, less information at a time? And it's, well, then we're going to go 32 weeks of every Thursday morning. So, and I think one of the things you'll find is that, as you hear things a second and third times, you'll be able to now fit them into a better system in your brain, that you can really have a better understanding of the confluence of the choices and issues that we face. A big part of this is creating this community vision. And generally I start at the other end. I'm a big task guy myself. I like, give you a list to do and I can do that. And taking the time for that vision, I've really grown to appreciate, especially through this program, about the importance that these visions can, the platform it can provide for your community to make choices, to carry through, to convince others to come on board. So we're going to talk about this, and we have two great community examples we're going to hear about. One from North Central Minnesota, Mark Jeffers from Aitkin County, Minnesota, and then Pat Pinkston from Greene County, Illinois. And two very different communities, two very different end strategies for moving forward. And so we're going to hear about that in just a minute, but I'm going to share my screen for just a moment and kind of set the stage for that. And so 1 second here, let me get that up. And there we go. So hopefully you're seeing my slides and not my preview. Good. It's worth the effort. That's what a lot of times there's other people on your team that want to, let's get to it. But I think it's really worth the effort here. And the benefits of that vision is to help inform your tech choices, decide about partners, inspire a constituency of champions. When you have a vision, people say, well, what are you guys doing? Instead of getting into a big detailed description, you can say, we want X, here's our vision, and bring people to that. It's great to sustain your action when you hit bumps in the road and progress, and keep people down on the right path. And you can really make sure that you're accountable to your own vision, that you can stand that up and use that as a way to say, hey, that option that we're being offered by company A, that would provide some improvements, but it doesn't come close to what we need for our own vision. And so this is what a lot of visions start like. This is what any community could say. We want all these things: world-class, gigabit, competitive, reliable, affordable, wired and wireless, provided by a variety of community-centric providers. And that would be great to have, but a lot of times you can't have it all. And so using your vision statement to really set your priorities is an important thing. There we go. Remember, as we create these, and we have a worksheet for you that will help you get going on your vision statement today, that we'll distribute later, is that every word needs to have a clear meaning. And so when you put a word on that paper, what does that mean? What are the implications? And it's really important to go through that and take the time. And one of this is really understanding what's important to everyone on your team. You may have people where having broadband everywhere is the most important thing. You may have other people who say that affordability is the most important thing. Some people say, man, we just need enough broadband to survive compared to what we have now. Other people say, no, we need a platform for growth into the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so understanding where your team is coming from on this, I think will really help you to figure out, what is our best strategy going forward. And I think taking the time to do that is really important. And update, this slide is a little wild for this morning. I just put this on here today, so I apologize. My eyes popped out of my head when I saw it on my big screen. But and remember that, and you'll hear this today, I think, especially from Mark Jeffers, about the need to update your vision as you learn more about your efforts. And so that's what I'm going to share right now on vision. And we're going to go to, let me stop sharing here. And I'm going to introduce Mark Jeffers. And I want to really thank Mark for stepping in today. We had somebody from Mercer County ready to join us today, and they've got a good initiative going up in northwest Illinois, and have done a lot of work on broadband. But they had a family emergency, and so they had to back out. And about noon yesterday, I was able to get Mark to agree to join us, and he's helped us in the past on Accelerate programs in Illinois, and it does a great job of explaining his situation, how they're moving forward in Aiken County, Minnesota. So welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you, Bill, and hello, everybody. I'm sure that you're excited about the, did I hear 32 weeks of
No, 16.
Nice.
If they wanted to go slow, it'd be 16 weeks or 32 weeks. So
there you go. 16 weeks of activity around learning broadband. I'm from Aiken County, Minnesota. We are a community of about 15,000 in our county, so a small rural area. We pride ourselves on recreation. We have the World River, Mississippi, that runs through our county. We have many lakes and recreational areas for kayaking, things like that. And we are part of the movement from people coming out of the metro and wanting to move back into a rural area, being able to telework from home, do all of those different things. And actually, we've seen a ton of people want to make their summer cabins into their full-time homes and work from those areas. So we took a look at broadband a year. This is now a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that we got the chance and opportunity to work with Bill and his team on a CBR Accelerate. So community broadband acceleration is what our cohort was. And Bill, do you have the slides? Or
I do.
Okay, perfect. If you could share, that'd be great. I don't think I have the ability to do that. I'm not sure. Oh, I do see it now, but
that's right. I've got it right here.
You're all over it. So when we take a look at the Aiken broadband situation when we started, and this was in 2020, and again right in the middle of a pandemic where everybody is trying to work from home, schools are trying to connect and do different things from classrooms at home and virtual. And you can see that we ranked 81st out of 87 of the counties in Minnesota in the availability of high-speed internet. So we had a majority of our area that would be considered underserved or unserved, right? Based on the numbers, the 25.3, I think it was at that time, for the state of Minnesota. The good news is, if you want to just click one more time, we had a bunch of things that were happening. We had a lot of organizations that decided exactly at that time, and probably before that time, that we really needed to get together and move this forward. I'm happy to say that the last numbers that I saw, we've moved up to 77. So in a year and a half or 2 years, there's movement, right? But the message behind that is it takes time to continue to grow. We're looking at, and of course, because everybody's competitive, we're looking at it like we think we're more like 74th rather than 77, the way our numbers are going. But with projects coming on board, with things that are planned out through this CBR Accelerate program that Bill took us through, and the learning of what we need for broadband and where we need to go. We were able to gain a couple of state grants that allowed us to do certain projects in certain areas. And myself as a county economic development coordinator, that's my responsibility, is to make sure that we're bringing in as much support as we can and get our internet service providers on board. That's a big thing in the area. If you've got internet service providers that aren't ready to take the challenge, then you've got to get them ready and get them in the game, because it takes everybody to move progress forward. So we're looking forward to the next year and a half, where we can see some significant strides based on some of the projects that we've got out there and active right now. But I know that the combination of what Bill's talking about today is the vision for the community. So when you're looking at your community, and this is an example of our Aiken County team that we put together. There's a number of different organizations. We had a couple of county commissioners that joined in. Some of our city administrators and county administrator were in the game. You can see mayors and city clerks and chamber associates, things like that. Chamber leaders were in there. We did have some business owners that are always stepping up to try to help us create that community vision. So we had a good mix. And the one thing that I did like is that you can see MLEC. You're probably not familiar with what that is, but Mille Lacs Energy Corporation, they are one of our internet providers, internet service providers. So it was great to have somebody on the team that first knew a whole lot more about broadband than any of us did, and second, be that aggressive community leader that's going to bring broadband to our area. So it was really good to see, but a good mix. And I think a very, detailed mix of people that you need in your area. And then you set out and you get together and you say, what are we going to do for the community? What is our plan? And you can see this is where we started as we got together with many meetings on what's our vision. And I'll say Aiken County strives to increase broadband internet capabilities for the entire community. We work to make available broadband connection to still undecided on the percentage at that time of residents, and make available quality internet service to this percentage of residents, all by 2024. So pretty naive, and lots of words, lots of things in there that say we're just going to solve the issue in a real short amount of time. And we found out through all of the process, it's much more complicated than that. But it can be done, and things can move forward. So as we continued, we had Aiken County strives to identify willing partners together, implement affordable and adequate broadband services to all residents where feasible in time and cost. Now that sounded like a commissioner statement in there to make sure that it's in time and cost. And you can see that we're trimming it down a little bit. And we're starting to understand what is the vision that we really want to accomplish. And where we ended, as Bill clicks to the next one, this is our broadband vision that we adopted, and it's to ensure broadband access to all Aiken County residents and visitors to support vibrant communities. So we took it from we're going to solve the world and we're going to do this percentage and this percentage to we're going to be the group that ensures broadband access by working with all of the different community leaders, organizations, internet service providers, county governments, city governments to make that happen. The good news is, and you guys I'm sure are all aware, that there's a number of dollars that are becoming available to increase broadband services. So the program that you're going through, the things that you're going to learn, if you don't already know, are the tricks and the trade secrets to be able to get to some of that money a little easier. And I say that in just a little bit, but this program does allow you the knowledge and to increase your knowledge to be able to get some of those grants, to be able to actually know in the community what you're talking about and what you need is important. And then going out, we took this message, we took this program and we took it out to the community and made sure we listened to them and found out where are our biggest needs and how can we solve that. From an internet service provider, you understand that they can't just throw money at a problem and make it lose money in the end. They're all based on their own financial things where they've got to make a profit as well. Co-ops are a little bit different than that and don't have to make as much profit, but they're still in the game. And you have to find out where you can mix all of that together in the community. Our community sits on some of the most or biggest, largest amount of wetlands in the state of Minnesota. So it's not easy to build. We have tons of trees that come with wetlands and lakes and all of those things. So you can't just pop satellite dishes up in wherever you want to. So there's a lot of complex things in our area, like every other area that you'll have to identify and make sure that you're trying to solve. But Bill, I hope that helps a little bit. I'll stand for questions too, but just know that it takes time. It takes time.
Could you talk a little bit more about how you deal? You've got probably 5 different broadband providers that are actively now expanding in your county. You went from really very little interest by providers to now a certain amount of competition between providers to deploy. How do you decide which are your best partners?
Well, they're all our best partners if they're willing to partner. So I think that was one of the things that, and I've been economic development director or coordinator for about 1.5 years, as I said, here in Aiken County, and it's bringing them in to be part of the solution. It's bringing them in to be part of the game and then allowing them to be in that game. I have regular meetings with every one of the internet service providers on a quarterly basis. They give me updates of what they're doing, and I want to know what they're doing on their own because they should have broadband plans for themselves. And they tell me where they're going in our county. And then we have a relationship where they tell me where they could use help. And my job is to go support that help and try and find the dollars to be able to expand into areas that they can't. It sounds perfect, but as long as we're all working together, that does make a difference. And we are gaining momentum. We continue to gain momentum in this area. I'm working with 3 different internet service providers on our border-to-border grants. So in our area, there's a state border-to-border grant. 3 different internet service providers in that little 15,000 population county are working on their own individual grants with us to get dollars to get it done where they couldn't already. And I'm interested in the spots where they couldn't already. They should have their own plans to be building out for their profit. And in those little sections that just don't make sense financially, that's where we have to come in and try to help find support.
So good. And I should tell you that Mark has areas where you can drive 20 miles and not have a house in the wetlands of Aiken Bog. It's a beautiful area of tamarack swamp, and it holds incredible wildlife and also many highway patrolmen like to hang out there. But but it's not an easy place. There's places that are right on the lake shore, lots of houses, pretty good densities that are easier to do, but then lots of areas that aren't. So it's been Mark's done a great job, and I think balancing that provider interest. It's easy to, that's our guy, we're gonna work with them. Don't close the doors to the other ones either. So
yeah. Bill, there's a question in the chat for Mark from Tony. What are some challenges you encountered that were unanticipated or were much bigger issues to overcome than you expected?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we had and still have is getting those areas covered, the unserved areas. That is a bigger challenge than what we thought it was going to be, because of what Bill just explained. In our territory, we've got the lake shore, and then we've got a bunch of houses around there, which is really great. But you have these 5 or 6 that are 5 miles out that want the same internet and will sign up for the same internet programs. I mean, that's important too. One of our other challenges was, if you build it, they will come, but not always. If you're not doing the right marketing in the beginning, you build the broadband out to the areas, and sometimes the residents decide that they don't really need broadband. So that was a waste. But I think the biggest issues that we're still trying to cover, and our biggest challenges, are getting to those unserved, those outlying areas. And I don't know if there's a magic bullet for that. If anybody has that, please send me an email and tell me about that. But I think it's just consistent work, right? It's continuing to make sure that when they're applying for what we call our border to border grants, that they're including those areas, or we're not going to support them on a grant, right? They need the county support for some extra points on their grant application, things like that. And if we don't see that they're trying to go beyond what they normally do, then we won't support that. But it is working together, collaborating. That's the biggest challenge issue that I think I can recall that we're going through at this point.
Good, great question.
Yes. Yeah.
Good, and that's kind of one of the challenges. In our next example, Pat Pinkston's going to talk about their provider partnership and how they came about it, and really a countywide effort by one provider. And so it's not as much of a piecemeal thing, I think. So we'll see here what Pat has to share. Mark, I really appreciate your efforts and your willingness to share this story with folks in Illinois. It's really, I think, a inspirational story for this whole area. And this is I'm going to make a pitch for regional collaboration. When we did this Accelerate program, it turned out that this is happenstance, luck, I think, is that the communities that we selected were all from kind of east central, north central Minnesota. And so there's a lot of collaboration between the communities. And I think that really also got the providers' interest. I think we had all 4 were in the top or the bottom 10 counties and plus 1 tribal government in Minnesota. And so by each team creating their plan individually, they found great opportunities then to collaborate together, because we know those county boundaries don't mean anything to providers. And that really provided a lot of regional momentum that stimulated another electric cooperative to get into the business. So that was great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, Bill. And thank you all. If you guys have any questions as you go forward, Bill's got my contact information too. Shoot me a message and I'll let you know what our challenges were on that part and what we did about it. So thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Mark. And if you're looking for a great vacation spot, Aiken County is it. So
thanks, Mark.
Good. Now I want to welcome Pat Pinkston, and Pat was a team member in Carrollton, Illinois. They applied to be a community in our program, Accelerate, and with a narrow focus on the city of Carrollton, and quite a change of focus and adventure there for Carrollton and Greene County. Welcome, Pat.
Yeah, good morning to all of you, and thanks for letting me share our story. And as I was talking with Adrian earlier, our story is not complete, but we've made significant progress, we think, and we believe we're on a good path. Actually, almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago or so, I was working with the city of Carrollton on some economic development activity, and learned of the Accelerate Illinois grant convinced our city finance director and one of the council people to apply for the Accelerated Illinois grant, the $15,000 grant, and got into the second cohort for the Accelerated Illinois group. We started off, we got the $15,000 grant, and the mayor of Carrollton, in his wisdom, I think, really reached not only into Carrollton, but reached across the county. And we're fortunate in the county, and I want to emphasize one of the things that Mark said earlier. If you've got people, and you certainly do, find people in your county or in your area that have some knowledge about the technology. We're fortunate to have a provider in the county who actually enables easements and grants for cable and telephone companies. And she and her company have been extremely supportive, as well as we've got just a local provider, a tech provider, who helps businesses and residents to improve their service. So pulled together a group from across the county. It included the city clerk and others from Carrollton, and included these tech people I talked about. We pulled some folks in from the library, pulled some folks in from the schools, and started really the process that you heard Mark talk about, which is, what are we trying to accomplish? And very quickly, we recognized that focusing only on Carrollton would be insufficient. We're a county of about 13,000 residents, very similar to what Marks County, Aiken County is. About a little over 6,000 households. Very little industry, some industry, but not very much. Primarily an ag focused area. We're about an hour from St. Louis and about an hour from Springfield, Illinois. So in a good position for remote work and some of those kinds of things, but really a rural, agricultural county. And we recognize that focusing only on one community would not be sufficient. That we really need to think about the entire county. And clearly each of the communities are dependent upon not only those who live in the community, but dependent obviously on those folks in the rural areas as well. As we think about all the things that Mark talked about, remote work and all those issues, those opportunities, frankly, it really provided us a way to remove a barrier from living in a place that has a rural lifestyle, low costs, and we're adding significant amenities to the area. Broadband was one of those things that really were preventing people from coming into the area. The practical issue with that as well is that at least under the prior guidelines of 25-3, the 4 larger communities in the county were really considered served. And as a matter of fact, then really grant ineligible, including the rural areas into that, offered up the opportunity to get grants that could make the entire project really work. So with this understanding of the codependency of the rural areas and the communities, the pragmatic or practical standpoint that we needed to be able to access grants to make this a reality, we very quickly came to the fact that we needed to make sure that every resident across the county was served. And so our goal that we came to over time was to focus on really where Mark ended up, which was, how do we ensure that we've got suitable broadband connectivity for every residence and every business across the county? And that was our primary goal. Then the conversation was, well, what does that mean? What kind of level of service? And while we started initially with the 25-3, I think we ultimately came to, hey, look, we really want to focus on trying to get every household to a minimum of 100 down and 100 up. So with that vision in mind, that really then, our next step was to figure out, so what is the current situation? We engaged a company out of Minnesota, GeoPartners. They helped us do a speed test, and I actually sent Bill one of the maps, and he wants to pull that up or take a look at an email. You can. It's called Report 1. There you go. So if you look at that, it provided us with a significant amount of information. Of the 6,400 households, we had a goal of getting to at least a 10% participation. So 687 different locations responded to that. We learned that for the most part, virtually no one in the rural areas had anything above 25-3. We had a cooperative that was providing us with a fixed wireless solution in the rural areas. But really there was no other provider out there other than the old DSL or copper wires that Frontier had in place. So you can see the data in the upper left-hand corner shows you kind of the demographics. You can see then the download speeds that we had. It'll show you then there were about 4% that had no service, and about half of those indicated that the reason they didn't have service was they couldn't afford it. So while we had service in some areas, in many cases it's $60 or $70 or more a month, you can see a significant group had less than 10 megabits per second download. And then you can see that there were very, very few that had anything exceeding the 100 megabits. The upload speeds were actually almost abysmal. The other thing that it provided us was down the lower left-hand corner, it provided us with who are the ISPs that are operating in our area. We frankly weren't very familiar with even who was providing service and what level of service they were providing. So this gave us a chance to understand who was providing service across the county. Once we had this information, we then proceeded to engage, as Mark said, engage each and every one of those with the hope that one or more would be willing to consider what they might do for us in the future. And we asked them two questions. The first question was really just an extension of what I said earlier. You know, what service are you providing to our county, and where are you providing service? And then the second question was, what are your plans for expanding or improving this service in the future? I'll tell you that the responses ranged from, in some cases, we couldn't even get a call back. Some cases they were kind of interesting, but they really weren't too interested in engaging because we were talking about a private-public partnership and how we could work with them to get grant funding, et cetera. And some of them really weren't very open to that kind of approach. Then to a couple of them who were really pretty interested in engaging. One of those, of course, was our Illinois Electric Cooperative, who provided the Illinois Rural Telephone Company service for the rural areas. Again, a fixed wireless solution that provided 25.3, and the other one was Frontier. As we engaged each of those in deep conversation, it became clear that Illinois Electric Cooperative, while they were very interested and eager to support us, first and foremost, that, you know, telecommunication or internet really wasn't their primary business. And then secondly, they had made significant commitments to other areas in their service area, Calhoun County to our west, that really precluded them or prevented them from really stepping up and providing anything to Greene County in any reasonable amount of time. The other issue that they ran into, and this is where we've been very engaged with the Farm Bureau, and they've been very helpful and supportive, but the other issue is that their telephone or their power lines run across rural ag land, and their easements don't enable or allow for them to string communications cabling on those same poles. So they were going to spend 3 to 5, as many as 7 years to try and provide us any kind of service. And they also encouraged us, because of, you know, the impact it has on economic development and power usage, that if we could find another provider, that we should actively engage with them. So that turned us to Frontier. Frontier, I think maybe you guys may know, about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, reorganized, did a Chapter 11. They've recapitalized, and they're very interested in growing and have made significant commitments to growing their user base. And they came back with a proposal where they would provide fiber internet to every household and every business across the county, with a minimum of 100 symmetrical service, up to 2 gigabit symmetrical service, and the 100 would be at $29.99 a month, which was well beyond, frankly, what we had ever hoped that it would be. This project will be likely, it originally estimated about $93 million. It likely will be over $100 million project before it's completed. Frontier is going to fund over 80% of this. We're working with the Connect Illinois Grant Fund to fund probably $15 to $18 million of it. We're raising $1.1 million locally. Greene County County Board just approved $250,000 towards that. And we're out engaging the other entities to get that $1.1 million raised. So interestingly, if you take the rates that Frontier has offered up, and you look at what the current rates are, people all across the county will significantly improve their service, and the entire county will likely see savings directly back to those customers of over $1 million a year. So where we're at right now is we just talked to Matt Schmidt, the Connect Illinois funding notice of funding offer will be released here hopefully in the next week or so. We'll apply for our grants. We're informing and engaging all of the folks across the county, raising the funds for the $1.1 million. And this project, once it's started, Frontier has committed to complete the project within 2 years. So provided we can get the grant funding, provided we can raise the local funding, potentially by the end of 2025, every resident across the county will have Frontier fiber service to their home.
That's an amazing turn of events.
Yeah, and of course, you know, it was just kind of interesting to listen to Mark talk, but frankly, one of the biggest hurdles we've had is just getting people to engage in this. While everyone likes to complain about their service, I don't think anyone believes that there was really an opportunity to do something different. And in many cases, just getting people engaged to support it. But we've had a great team. The team's been very engaged. Actually, leading it now is our Greene County Economic Development Group. And it is a significant turn of events. And we're hopeful we can bring this thing home here in the next 3 to 4 months and get started.
That's great, Pat. And I give you a lot of credit because you've been working. I mean, this is, I was looking back and it's, you know, you guys actually participated in the Illinois Connected Communities program, which was kind of a little bit of a mishmash program. Communities can either work on infrastructure or adoption or use. And they did get that $15,000, which is, I think that caught a lot of people's ears when you mentioned that. And this program, all they get is information, no money. But that with that investment, you're able to hire the Geo Partners folks to help. And I think that was probably a real positive thing for you. And then the timing with Frontier as they came out of bankruptcy to say, what's our new strategy? And I give you credit. I'm not nearly as forgiving a person maybe as you are there in Greene County. And so to kind of take a chance, say, let's go with this big company is that's really great.
Well, and again, I would tell you, one of the biggest burdens we've got is that Frontier actually purchased the 60-year-old plus copper technology that I think was originally Verizon or someone that had GTE or Verizon. And the current service that Frontier provides, one of the bigger hurdles we've got is talking people through what they currently have experienced in the past and what they likely will experience going forward. Because of this old copper technology, these green boxes that are wires sticking out of them and laying all around. And it's been a little, one of the first questions we get is, well, why would I go with Frontier? Their service is lousy. Well, you know, the way I explain it to them is that Frontier is trying to provide service today if you're a farmer with an old 2-row tractor mounted corn picker, you know, a 60-year-old piece of equipment. And they're now getting ready to upgrade to the most modern combine, you know, that's in the field today. And the reliability and the, you know, the bandwidth will be dramatically improved. One of the benefits, frankly, Frontier looks forward to is that they will greatly be able to reduce the amount of service cost and people required in the county. You know, in some cases, when a customer loses service, they literally have to go back and restring copper lines for, you know, hundreds of yards or miles. And with new fiber installation, that will just be eliminated. One of the other advantages with Frontier is that because they have these copper wires and because they're in the road right-of-ways, there are no real easement issues. We think there will be no easement issues. I would say we have put together a road use and utility permit agreement that Frontier's agreed to sign. We worked with them on that so that, you know, some of the experience and questions we get from county commissioners are, well, hey, I've got fiber or lines that are running through my culverts, or they dug up a culvert and they never fixed it. The road use agreement requires that, defines that. And oh, by the way, the funding that we're providing from local, the 1.1 million, is contingent upon them meeting the conditions of that road use and utility permit. So One final thing I'd say too is we've not precluded or excluded anybody else from engaging. Whisper, Illinois Electric Cooperative, frankly, we're open to competition, but it's probably going to be pretty difficult for others to, compete with this fiber service at $30 a month. And on the affordability side, with $30 a month, the ACP or Affordable Connectivity Program that the federal government provides, the $30, literally we will have a significant number of the residents across the county who will get no charge internet now at 100 symmetrical service. So $29.99, they get the $30 a month credit. They'll get basically 100 symmetrical service for no charge every month.
That'll be great. The next thing you'll have to do is figure out how to make use of all that networking for your community health applications and schools and all that. So that can be transformational, but that's work too. So
yeah, I mean, as you talk about the elements you guys have talked about, I mean, it's about making it accessible. It's about making it affordable. Now it's about, gaining use of that network. And we've talked about telehealth. We've talked about education. We all know what happened during COVID. Now potentially we can attract more remote workers and improve property values. And ultimately we'd like to attract business, but you need that infrastructure in place to enable that to happen.
good. Thank you, Pat. Thanks for joining us today and sharing your story.
Thanks, and good luck to all of you. Take care of you.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, bye-bye.
So and maybe is Robbie on? Robbie, could you put that vision worksheet and also then the provider interview questions in the chat? I haven't seen Robbie today, but I want to talk.
I'm here. I can work on it. I'll put the vision first, and then I got to find the provider one, but I'll get there.
Okay. The we're going to jump a little bit here because we always have plenty of work for you to do. But create the vision and then look at these broadband provider interviews. It's never too soon to start these and to start that conversation with broadband providers. And I just want to talk about that task a little bit. It's something that some communities think, oh, let's get to that later. But I'd really encourage you to create the little steering team or sub team to attack this this task and get moving on that, so they know what you're up to and identify early who might be your best partners. As we heard just now, the Connect Illinois program is going to reopen, and so there's really immediate opportunities to find maybe some low-hanging fruit projects in your community, and so this would be a way to do it. The first thing I would say is that the purpose is to develop relationships and gather high-level information. And there's a consulting firm, Vantage Point. They do a lot of work in Illinois, and they work with a lot of smaller providers in particular. And Kevin Clone always likes to say, well, there's some problems can be solved with coffee and a ham sandwich. And so starting that relationship with the providers is really important. To hear about their existing plans, like Mark Jeffers talked about, learn about where they can't get this done without help, and agree on some next steps. You want to identify your existing broadband providers, your incumbent ones, the competitive ones, wired and wireless, and then identify prospective competitive providers. Who's providing service in the neighboring counties? Who's providing service even across the state that you've heard about that are good companies, and you can look at kind of the grant list from Connect Illinois and see who's been aggressive in looking at trying to get these dollars. Today with the networks as they are, if people can use a middle mile to get network to get from place to place, their areas don't have to necessarily be contiguous. Learn what you can do to attract their interest. Use this as a partner funnel, decision-making, and maintain contact with those providers. Really important through the process. And you heard about Mark Jeffers and how their electric co-op was a participant in their Accelerate program. But as well, then they actually had another telephone cooperative kind of join in, as well as a family-owned cable company that started attending those meetings just to hear what people are saying about the opportunities and so on. A lot of times a provider will say, well, there's not enough market there for me to come and invest. But if you get somebody else who's there investing, then suddenly the marketplace might have enough room for 2 or 3 providers. So it's an interesting thing if you can get their interest and they see their lost opportunity to capture that marketplace. And these are the questions that I recommend, and that's going to be in the worksheet that Robbie will put in the work in the book. All these, a lot of our worksheets are all in the Accelerate guide too, that's online that we've made you aware of as well. So a great place to keep all this information. And you can see these, it's what's your current level of service. Here's the map, I think showing providers the map and getting them to recognize the shortcomings is always a powerful kind of tool to say, we want to fix this problem and what are you going to help us with? The impact of previous funding, what does it take to get them to invest? And just really start to understand the motivation. And so you'll find different providers have different motivation. Cooperatives are all about serving members. Family-owned companies are about, making a reasonable return on investment over time, building relationships. The bigger companies, tends to be more bottom line, but also reputation is important. And they see this as a real opportunity. One of the things for them is a lot of these companies like Frontier see a group like Carrollton County saying, or Greene County, we want somebody to come in here and provide service. And so that would move Frontier from being the incumbent provider and the monopoly provider into a very subservient position of if there's somebody else is providing fiber to the home, the Frontier's copper network would be quickly 0 customers. And so they don't want to lose that monopoly position either. And so I added this question, it's not in the guidebook. Because this is important to me, I think, this is about a long-term partnership. And so a company, and frankly, like Frontier or some of the bigger ones, over the years, they've let their networks, degrade, and they haven't maintained them. And so they'll build these new fiber networks if they get the money. But what's the commitment of those providers to your community to do this maintenance, to be a part of the community, the chamber, economic development? It's not just here's the service, enjoy it. It's some providers are much more integrated into a community as a real partner around economic development, supporting the 4th of July fireworks, all those kind of things. And so I think that's something that you can ask. And then, so we provide essentially an interview guide, which is these questions. We don't have much advice for you on how to do this. I think it's, you're always being polite, right? And it's always about trying to build a relationship with folks. And so use those questions. We provided you with provider lists in the survey document. You can see which providers we see are listed on your in your county. And then the bigger ones we'll put a list in, we'll send that out in our follow-up email. We've been creating that with the contacts for the bigger companies. And then it's usually pretty easy with the smaller companies to call their phone number and say, can I talk to the general manager? And you'll get to those folks. Just pretty simple there, and you might know them already. And so that's this big task. And I think you'll find it to be very gratifying and very informational to hear about their plans and what they need to move forward. Good. I see in the chat that Shabika responded by creating a list of rankings of counties and their level of service. So people are interested in how they rank. And this is I think a great little tool that shows some counties that, hey, we are way behind. We better get moving. And so it can be very motivational when you talk to your county commissioners. And I haven't looked at this list yet, but I think that'll be helpful. So we're gonna it's 9:22. I don't see any other questions in the chat, and so we're gonna go to our breakout rooms pretty quickly here. But I just want to emphasize kind of the tasks that you need to do. And so I'd encourage you to spend some time today on the vision. Just to get some words down on paper. You don't have to have a vision statement, but begin to go through some of those considerations on that worksheet about what are we really trying to accomplish here. I think you'll find that to be helpful. You want to think about the provider interviews, and maybe there's a group of 3 people that want to take on that task on your team. And those who aren't really doing much on maybe the survey effort could step up and help on these provider interviews. Or, you know, it's good to have some level of technology expertise on that so that you can find out if you're being snowed a little bit on the thing. So it's good to have somebody who kind of understands provider talk, but to have somebody of position, county commissioner, a mayor, something like that, who represents kind of the larger local units of governments to say, hey, this is important and this is a countywide initiative. And then thirdly, and also very important, is how's the survey going? And so have you launched? When are you launching? You know, what's happening on the marketing communications side? And so I encourage you to try and take on all that in the next hour or so. It's a big list, I know, but try and manage your time effectively so you can touch on all 3 of those. And again, I would, with the amount of work in this program, dividing and conquering, I think, is something that some of our most effective teams do. They'll give 2 or 3 people, okay, you guys we've talked about the vision. Now 1 person or 2 people go write it and take a shot at that and be able to come back and review a document next week would be great. Adrienne?
Thanks, Bill. I hope you would spend some time saying that both you and Robbie are out next week, and I will be running the session. And what we'll be talking about is how we communicate the vision that you're going to start to craft today to your various audiences. Hopefully my voice will be in better shape than it is today when I run through my slide deck. My co-presenter is going to be Deanna from the Illinois Soybean Association. And I hope to have another guest, though I haven't confirmed her yet, but I am looking forward to next week. If I could ask Nancy, Grace, and myself to stay in the main room before we do the breakout, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Bill.
Good. And I also want to, last thing I want to say, there's always one more thing with me that you'll probably get used to that. You might not like it, but we've got our meetings pretty well scheduled. And I just want to touch base with those. And I'm looking for Hancock. I don't know if I wrote that one down. So we've got Ogle County on 3/13 and Schuyler County on the 15th. We've got McLean and Edgar on the 16th. And I think Hancock is, Sam, help me out.
Yeah, we actually just heard from the last of my team today. I either of those days and times, so whatever works best for you is going to be, yeah. So I mean, if you want to do it in the afternoon on the 15th, and most of us are available on the 14th, so you decide what works, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that sounds good. And I want to make it clear that really these agendas, these times are really up to you in terms of what we accomplish. And so if you want to just meet with your steering team, that's fine. I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity to, if you want to invite in more people to a meeting, you can, and county commissioners or chamber people, or really to have me do kind of a broadband 101, a 20-minute presentation or something, 30 minutes about your effort to the broader community, make a little bit of a to-do about it. I think that might be helpful. If you wanted to bring in a group of farmers, not that I'm expert on that, maybe we could get the Farm Bureau people to facilitate a meeting around from farmers on that, or the Soy Association, or the small business community, and so on. Any one of those are options for your communities to think about, just to maximize those. I think like the way the calendar is, I can be in your communities for 4 hours or so, and we can make the best use of that. Good. With that, we'll ask Nancy to open up the rooms and we'll let people get busy.
Yep, I'm opening those up now. I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks, everyone.